Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm really delighted to be here tonight because 2 years ago when I was Vice President, I said to Helen Brand, our CEO, "What are we doing in Indonesia?" She said, "What do you mean?" I said, "What are we doing in Indonesia?" "Oh, not a lot." I said, "Do you realise that when I look up from Australia," and by the way, this speech is in Australian English. When I look up from Australia, I see 240 million people. I see a lot of Indonesian students coming to our universities in Australia. So why aren't we there? She said, "Yes, I think perhaps we should do something." I said, "Right, key performance indicator. Before I finish my role as president, I want to open the first office in Indonesia." And that's going to happen. And that's how it all actually focused. And the staff here in Indonesia have been working flat out ever since. And I'm very pleased to be here. I want to just start off with a quotation from another man who had a moustache. "To give everyone who intended to take up the profession and could prove by examination their fitness and experience an opportunity of joining an association which would provide them with a qualification they could use." That quote is from Arthur Priddle, the very first ACCA president. And some 109 years later, that philosophy hasn't changed. And that is why I'm so proud to be not only a member of ACCA, but its current president. Before I go into the formal part of my speech, I want to give you a couple of examples of how ACCA changes people's lives. And for those who were at the conference yesterday, forgive me for giving you the same examples, but just in case you weren't listening, you'll hear them again tonight. When I worked in Hong Kong for 4 years, I convinced ACCA at the time to move into China. At that stage, we did not have one member in China. And so I went across to London and spoke to the CEO, or Deputy CEO, and said, "Why aren't you in China?" She said, "Very good idea, Barry, but it's a bit difficult. It's a long way from London, and we need staff to run revision courses." I said, "Not a problem. I've got 45 Chinese staff at the Hong Kong Polytechnic who work for me. We can do it." She said, "What? Okay, why don't we?" I went back to Hong Kong and said to my staff, and I got a bit of a funny look. I didn't realise then that in 1988, none of my staff had ever been to China. And I thought, well, it's just 10 kilometres up the road, what's the problem? Says Barry in his innocence. Anyway, I convinced a couple of staff to come with me. And that was the start of 25 trips I made into China. And I can tell you now in 1988, 1989, it wasn't much fun travelling in China. But we did that. And on the very first trip, one of the members of that delegation was a Price Waterhouse in those days, before they joined Cooper's partner. And he said to me, "Barry," he said, "you know, my father was a guard on the Kowloon Railway. And if it wasn't for ACCA, I would also be a guard on the Kowloon Railway, rather than being a partner at Price Waterhouse." He said, "ACCA changed my life. Because I had no opportunity to go to university. Those exams were tough. Luckily I'm smart. I passed the exams and now I'm a partner at Price Waterhouse." And the first university we visited in Beijing, University of International Business Economics, a very young junior lecturer came up to me. His name was David Wu. And David said, "Barry, I want to be the first ACCA in China." I said, and he came from a farm with illiterate parents. And I said, "David, I'm sure you will be." Guess what? Not only was he the first ACCA in China, but about 4 years ago he was appointed as the managing partner of PricewaterhouseCoopers for the whole of China. ACCA changed his life. And a third and final example was a few months ago in Sydney. I was at a ACCA function and sitting next to a young gentleman called Hisham. I said, "Hisham, tell me your story." He said, "I was born in Tanzania." He said, "I went to Kenya. I studied ACCA at night with those BPP manuals." And he said, "That's how I qualified. We had no money, I couldn't go to university. I then went to Dubai and worked for 5 or 10 years, 10 years, came to Australia. I'm now a senior partner in Ernst & Young." Another example, changed people's lives. So if you want to understand why I'm so passionate about ACCA, and I've been in academia now for over 40 years. I started when I was young, when I didn't have a moustache, and when my hair was black and I was skinny. Okay? Like good wine, you sort of improve with age, at least I keep trying to tell myself. If I stopped drinking so much wine, I probably would improve. But having said that, I've actually seen, I've been involved in education and training all those years, and that is what ACCA does, and that is why ACCA is going to make a big difference here in Indonesia, working with the local accounting body. That wasn't part of the speech that the ACCA gave me to present tonight, so I now get on to my formal speech, but I'll try and cut it a bit short to make up for the extra time. But being a professor, you tend to sort of get up and talk. That's sort of what we do for a job, but I will try and keep it short anyway. So obviously I'm very pleased to be here tonight, and I've given you the reasons why I feel so passionate about what we're doing here in Indonesia. So what are the benefits of having an ACCA office in Indonesia? This country is at the epicentre of the Southeastern Asian region, surrounded, as you well know, by Singapore, Malaysia, and other countries that are significantly involved with the finance and accountancy industries. It is our 6th office in this part of the world. So the primary aim of this investment is to support the Republic of Indonesia in developing a sustainable pool of qualified accountants who can support the rapid economic progress of the country and provide for a robust governance framework. We all know that Indonesia's economy has flourished over the past few years, even when the rest of the world has faced some of its toughest times financially, through the global financial crisis, and even now, of course, through the problems in the Eurozone. Many of us never heard of Cyprus until we found out what happened just recently. Greece, Spain, Ireland, we've heard about all those issues, and yet out here in Asia and here in Indonesia, the economy continues to grow. You already have amongst the largest economy in the region. I think you're number 18 in the whole world, and probably 5 years from now, you're probably close to number 8 or 10. But you have the smallest number of accountants. The accountants in Indonesia must be very, very efficient. There are 240 million people and 10,000 accountants. In Australia, there is 22 million people, probably fit into Jakarta, and 180,000 accountants. Now you ask the question, what do all these Australian accountants do? That's a very good question. I've got no idea. Okay? But you can see that there's a mismatch somewhere. Either we have far too many accountants in Australia, or we have far too few in Indonesia. Now given that Australia's unemployment rate at the moment, touch wood, is only around about 5%, well then most of those accountants must have a job. So the lack of qualified financial professionals arguably remains a key structural risk for Indonesia's economic growth, as it will with any growing economy. We have been working closely with Indonesia's Ministry of Finance to provide technical support and guidance on how to remedy the shortage of accountants. By having this office, we can also work closely with regulators and the EAE, the National Body for Accountants, with universities, tuition providers who offer ACCA qualifications, and also key corporate multinational clients and audit firms. The establishment of ACCA's representative office will allow for further work under the auspices of ACCA's memorandums of understanding with EAE and also Petra Christian University. The former provides for a joint commitment to support the development of the accounting profession in Indonesia, and the latter will see the launch of a new international business accounting degree program which will incorporate the ACCA syllabus. This will be the first time a university in Indonesia will be teaching both its own program and the ACCA's concurrently. This and other capacity building programs will help to generate further demand and build the profile for a global professional qualification while delivering benefits to Indonesia. In fact, also, only yesterday, we also signed an MOU with Binus University here in Jakarta. ACCA has also been actively supporting the Accounting and Auditors Directorate at the Ministry of Finance in its promulgation of the Public Accountants Bill, as well as the Financial Reporting Act. We have a successful history of establishing offices in various countries, and as was mentioned previously, ACCA now has over 154,000 members, over 430,000 registered students. That's a lot of people. One of my staff members at Deakin University said to me once, "Barry, this organisation you're president of is fairly big." I said, "Yes." I said, "Have you ever been to a grand final at the Melbourne Cricket Ground?" We don't play much cricket there, by the way, we play football. And when it's full, there's 100,000 people in that ground. I said to him, if we could put together all our members and all our registered students, we could actually fill that ground 6 times over. And he said, wow, that is a big organisation. And that's what we are, and that's why I believe working here in Indonesia, as we have in 170 countries elsewhere in the world, we really can actually make a difference. It's really important to build financial capacity in Indonesia, because if this country is to grow and develop its economy, become an ever more thriving society, then you need good financial capacity. Economies will always need accountants. And accountants have been around for hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of years, thousands of years. In fact, the word audit comes from the Latin word, if you have any Latin scholars here, probably not, audia, which means to hear. And what happened at the time of the Romans, the officials would get up and present the accounts and they would be heard. If it was a true and fair view, they could go home. If it wasn't a true and fair view, they got thrown to the lions. But that is where the word audit comes from. So that's how far back in history the accounting profession goes. Our students and members are perfect for the roles here in Indonesia because of their training. They have the multitude of skills they will need to become well-rounded accountants. Accountants who can get involved in any tasks that are thrown at them. They will be prepared for anything that comes their way to deal with, as they are increasingly brought to the forefront to resolve professional and financial issues. To promote and campaign for the well-rounded accountant, earlier this year we published a report called The Complete Finance Professional, Why Breadth and Depth of Finance Capability Matter in Today's Finance Function. The report gathered together existing evidence about the role of the 21st century accountant. It also outlines why broad-based finance qualifications remain valuable in economically turbulent times. In this particular research, nearly 500 CFOs in the UK, Malaysia, Russia, China and UAE were surveyed, asking them a series of questions about what was important to them when it comes to appointing newly qualified accountants. What gives them confidence in their new hires? What skills enable them to grow the business, particularly since the global financial crisis? The key findings from this survey showed, for example, the following. The importance of newly qualified finance professionals having a good working knowledge of different finance areas also resulted in high scores for each finding. For instance, 96% said newly qualified finance professionals should know about financial management. 94% said it was important to have a good understanding of professionalism and ethics. Management skills scored 73%, while stakeholder relationship management came lower down the ranking at 68%. The most beneficial grounding to help a newly qualified finance professional on the path to being a future leader was a full appreciation of financial and management skills. 89% said that understanding the links between all areas of finance enabled recruits to minimise future financial risks and also enabled them to deal with financial challenges. 80% said it would enable their new recruit to take their career in any direction they chose. To tie up with the Complete Finance Professional campaign, we published an online competency framework highlighting the 10 key competencies that finance professionals must have if they are to succeed in business and their careers. And of course, the ACCA qualification comprehensively covers these abilities and behaviours through its exams, through to the practical experience requirement and the ethics module. The 10 competencies for complete finance professionals in this new framework include the following: professionalism and ethics, governance, risk and control, shareholder relationship management, strategy and innovation, leadership and management, corporate reporting, sustainable management and accounting, financial management, audit and assurance, and taxation. So the old days of the accounting bookkeeper just needing to know the trial balance and debits and credits is well and truly gone. There's a much broader role for accountants in the current environment. So what this research does is highlights the abilities which aspiring finance professionals must have if they are able to meet the requirements of potential future employers. ACCA has always been committed to ensuring that its qualification meets the needs of every sector in every region of the world, and the competency framework brings these together. It not only serves as a checklist for students, but as a clear demonstration to employers that those with the ACCA qualification are complete finance professionals. So that's just some of what the ACCA has been doing and intends to do in the future to benefit everyone with ACCA. But what do we ask of our students, members and staff? The ACCA's 5 core values of opportunity, diversity, innovation, accountability and integrity are ingrained into our students from day one, and we continue to instill in our members throughout their careers. That those of you in the audience who are already members will know, innovation is arguably the key to an ever-changing industry. Without it, transformation will never happen, and so the industry will not evolve as it should. So fresh ideas are key to improving what's happening in the profession. I want to talk a little bit more in depth for a moment about integrity. On our website it says that integrity, we all agree that for integrity rather, we all agree to act ethically and work in the public interest, treating people fairly and honestly, and that we encourage the same from others. We have a whole module of the ACCA qualification dedicated to teaching about professional ethics. The subject matter is covered in 11 of the 16 exam papers that are set by our students. So this shows just how vital we believe this is to be a part of studies and careers. ACCA knows how important it is to practice ethics and professionalism at all times, from the moment one becomes a student of the organisation, and we entrust students to carry this through their professional lives. That is why we practice what we ask our students and members to do by launching campaigns such as the one on public value, which talks more about what our accountants give their clients and the rest of society as well. We launched our public value campaign last year, in which a report was published about the thoughts of accountants and the public in regards to trust. When it comes to engaging public trust, the report offers 5 recommendations for the accountancy profession to close the value gap. Engage in discussion with stakeholders and the public at large about what it actually means to be an accountant. Talk about audit, what it is and what it is not. Audit has recently come in for a lot of criticism around the world, particularly in regards to the financial crisis. Take the initiative and explain how accountants can add value. Address real concerns about ethical issues and conflicts of interest. And develop the soft skills needed to do this engagement and build trust with people. The results from the report also show the profession needs to work on its own image compared to other professions. The public ranks the accountancy profession below high trust alternatives such as doctors, nurses, firefighters, paramedics, architects and engineers. However, we are seen as more trustworthy than bankers, more trustworthy than journalists, more trustworthy than lawyers, and more trustworthy than politicians. Politicians are pretty low in the ranking. The ranking in Australia, 43 professions, and politicians are number 41. Just above sex workers are number 38. So you can see we have a long way to go. And I just want to keep, perhaps use another, I like using quotations just to wrap this up. But up until the year 2002, we had 5 accounting firms. The big 5 firms. And one was Arthur Andersen, who I joined very proudly in 1969. I started my career at Arthur Andersen. And in 1999, a CD-ROM on ethical behaviour, which was distributed to all the Arthur Andersen staff in the United States. The managing partner, Steve Samet, in the introduction said, "The day we lose the public trust is the day we go out of business." In 2002, Arthur Andersen, with 85,000 employees worldwide, went out of business. Now, we would never, anyone in the profession would have ever thought that that would have happened. Now, if you ever study that case, it's not just about Enron. It wasn't a technical failure. If you look at Enron and the accounting manipulations, it was what I'd call accounting 102. World problem with capitalisation of interest was probably accounting 101. It was all about ethical failure. And that was a seminal event in the accounting profession. And since then, the International Federation of Accountants brought out a new code of ethics, which have been adopted around the world. I think the profession's come a long way since then. But it took Arthur Andersen 90 years to build a reputation, and they lost it in 90 days. So we still have a way to go, and it's really important that professional bodies, such as ACCA, continue to provide leadership, thought leadership and guidance to make sure that we maintain the public trust. Because without the public trust, we don't really have a profession. Having said all that, I think accountants have been around for a long time yet. I hope that when I look back and I use this comparison with China and the work I did in China, and I look, when I was in China recently, 4,300 members in mainland China, ACCA members, 32,500 students. When I went there in 1988, there wasn't one. Well, here in Indonesia, at least we have a running start. We've certainly got more than one member here in Indonesia. Now, that was 25 years ago. If I come back in 25 years, I'll be 90. So the chances are I probably won't be alive, or otherwise they probably won't let me travel. So I won't be back in 25 years to check it out. But I'll be keeping an eye on what happens here in Indonesia, because I really do believe that ACCA can achieve great things here in Indonesia, which is going to make a huge difference to the lives of many people in this great country. Thank you very much.